It is time for the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about Panama Canal cruises, 2 Disney offers, and our favorite trips and vacations. Let's start the show. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, contains travel deals, promotions, and offers that may be time sensitive. All offers and information were accurate when the show aired. Travel deals and offers change constantly and are capacity controlled and subject to change without notice.
Helping you plan your next vacation. This is the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call us now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Here's Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Serving up the world to our listeners. You are listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. My name is Patrick Wiscombe. Mark Faldmo will be here in just a minute. And as I mentioned just before we started the show, we're going to be talking about Panama Canal cruises, Disney offers, and of course, our favorite trips or vacations. We want to thank you for taking the time to stop and listen. And the entire purpose of this show, if you've never heard it before, is to help you plan and book your next vacation. And if you have no idea where to go, our job is pretty simple. It is to give you ideas of where you want to vacation next. And Mark and I are presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. And Mark, it is hard to believe as you enter the studio. I cannot believe that we are starting season 3 of the podcast. It's unbelievable to me.
Yep, season 3. We just keep going. Show gets better as we keep going.
As we start the podcast, let's start with the travel news headlines. I saw a story that Korean Air has acquired or is acquiring a majority stake in the Asiana Airlines. When did that happen?
This happened in mid-December. Korean Air is taking over or purchasing Asiana Airlines, which is going to enhance their route network in Asia. A few weeks ago, we talked about Delta Airlines starting a new flight from Salt Lake City to Seoul, Korea. And Korean Air is a SkyTeam member. So this acquisition of Asiana is really going to help us here in Salt Lake when going to Asia in a roundabout the way, even though these are 2 airlines based in South Korea. For us here in Salt Lake, and for those listeners in Salt Lake, it's going to really open up more of Asia.
I can get behind this idea, Mark, maybe. Frontier Airlines, that's the pause in my voice. Frontier Airlines is selling an all-you-can-fly pass for 2025. I'm curious to know how much it is, but it is Frontier Airlines, which is why I kind of went, maybe I can get behind this.
This is the 2nd year in a row that they're doing this. The pass's name is called the Go Wild Pass. It's $499, which is discounted from the typical price of $699. That will give you unlimited flights between May 1st, 2025 and April 30th, 2026.
Okay.
Now, here's the terms and conditions. So you can book it all the way up until 1 day prior to flight, but you don't get any included luggage, both carry-on and checked luggage. You don't get an assigned seat. So that's all done basically when you're boarding the flight.
So you're going to get the middle seat.
You'll probably get the middle seat. And it's an included pass, but I think by law they have to charge something for it. Mm-hmm. So the cost of each flight is 1 cent plus any government taxes and fees.
When you and I travel together on business, I travel pretty light. You've seen that I just basically bring a backpack and it's got everything in there. Laptop, everything, clothes, etc. I can't even bring that, or they're going to charge me for it.
You'd have to pay for it. They will charge you for it.
Oh, boy.
I know someone that worked in San Francisco, and they bought this pass because they were commuting 2 times a week between Salt Lake and San Francisco, and it was well worth it. That's a short flight. Middle seats are hard, but for an hour and 20 minutes, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
And if you're responsible to get yourself to and from work in another city, commuting a lot, this makes a lot of sense.
You have traveled almost 4 million miles. Would you consider doing this?
I would consider it. I'd have to go really evaluate it on what my travel plans are. If you're just going, let's say, Salt Lake City to the West Coast right now, on Delta, you're paying $350 round trip. So this will cost you basically the cost of 2 round trip flights.
Okay.
Now you'll have to pay other things on top of that. But if I was going to someplace that Frontier flew that wasn't too long, I would definitely consider getting this.
Let me just ask you a follow-up question. On Frontier Airlines, this all-you-can-fly pass, is it good for international?
It is. This is good anywhere in Frontier's route network. So Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, wherever they fly, this is valid.
I might have to take a look at this.
It automatically renews the next year at the $6.99 rate unless you cancel it.
Well, I know what Patrick's doing after the show.
Yeah.
I got to figure out how much a carry-on would be.
Carry-on is worth, yeah.
While I was gone for the last 2 weeks, you sent me this article that Waikiki's, or as Siri says, Waikiki, the iconic Rainbow Tower is getting a renovation. What kind of plans do they have to renovate the place?
The Hilton Hawaiian Village they have several towers that you can stay in. The Rainbow Tower is the iconic one that everyone sees on the TV shows, Hawaii Five-0, Magnum PI. They're completely renovating guest rooms and hallways within the structure. I think you stayed there.
I did.
But about a year ago.
Yep.
And it probably felt like it didn't need renovation, but they're going to really upgrade that even more than what it was.
The hotel rooms were huge.
That's one thing at the Hilton Hawaiian Village, with the exception of one of the towers. They all have pretty large guest rooms. And then you look at the Rainbow Tower, it has large rooms plus great views of Diamond Head if you're on the right side.
Yeah.
Or the marina if you're on the other side of that tower.
You put us on the Diamond Head side. We had a high floor. We were up, 20 stories? Something like that?
Yes.
I don't remember how tall it was, but we were up there a ways.
That's probably my favorite hotel in Waikiki. So I'll be excited to see these renovated rooms.
Always in this segment is the destination of the week, and the question Mark was asked most often during the past few weeks. What was Mark's most memorable vacation and why?
And I actually liked answering this question because travel is such a good way to make memories, both with friends and family, and make memories with yourself. Travel is such a good way to connect with the world. But I think my most memorable trip was a trip to Norway. It was a family trip. It was with aunts and uncles and some cousins. And it was kind of a family history trip. So we've talked about on this show a few times. That's where my heritage is from, is Norway and Iceland. We can go to the family farm where my last name, Faldmo, comes from. We flew into Stockholm, Sweden, saw the sights of Stockholm, Sweden. If you're an ABBA fan, there's a great ABBA museum there. And then we got on an overnight train with sleeper cars. The train ride was about 36 hours. We went from Stockholm up to Narvik, Norway, which is in the Arctic Circle. That's where the Nazis first invaded Norway in World War II. And so there's a Narvik under Nazi occupation museum, which is fascinating. Also there, we took a tram ride up to the top of a mountain at like 2 a.m. and it was light as day. Wow. This was in early June, so we were almost 24 hours of sunlight. We went down to the ocean, swam in the ocean in the middle of the night in the Arctic Circle. And then we got on a bus and drove down the Norwegian coast to Oslo.
Wow.
It's a road and ferry system. We'd bus for a while, then the bus would get on a ferry and it'd, take you across a fjord or something. But that drive, that first day out of Narvik, I could not believe the scenery. It was so beautiful. Just tall mountains shooting up from sea level. That part of the world in the Arctic Circle is just so beautiful. As we were driving down, kind of a fun thing, travel. Some things don't go as planned. Our bus broke down kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Oh boy.
And so they called a public bus to come get us. They took us to a restaurant while our bus was being fixed. And I don't like tomatoes, but the only place this little rest stop had to offer was tomato soup. It was the best tomato soup I've ever had. I kind of crave that tomato soup. So, so after we got our bus fixed, we went down to Mosjøen, which is about halfway down Norway. And that's where my family's from. We went to some cemeteries. Like I mentioned earlier, we saw the family farm, which is on a great big waterfall on the river that runs behind the farm. And then we ended up in Oslo, Norway, and saw the sights there. That was about a 2-week-long trip. The memories that were made there, and especially to connect with some family heritage, was an amazing trip. So that's probably my most memorable trip.
If I have to volunteer something, my first thought was going to Alaska. And the way you describe going down the Norwegian fjords, where you're in the water, and then these just gigantic mountains just shoot out of the water into the sky. And I still remember, I can't remember if it was Ketchikan or wherever it was. The boat just pulls up to the pier right there in Ketchikan. And you're in the water, you get off the boat, and then you're right next to a mountain in a train. It was unbelievable.
And those memories are what makes travel worth it, I think. So,
agreed.
Travel, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that's my passion. I love to connect that, and I love to help people connect with our world around us and with family and friends as they travel.
Well, I think we've done our job in this segment. So if you have been inspired to either go to Norway, go to Alaska, wherever it is that you enjoy going, Mark can help you with that. Just call him in his office if you would, please. 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717. When we come back, we've got more travel news of the week. In segment number 2, we've always got the hot travel deal of the week, regardless of the destination. And are we going to Disney on this one?
We are. Our deal's going to be Disney, both Disney World and Disney Cruise Line.
And we're talking 50% off for kids. That's just a little bit of a teaser. That is next when the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show continues. Alongside Mark Faldmo, my name is Patrick Wiscombe. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your weekend. We will be right back.
If you have travel questions, they have the answers. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Call or text the show right now. 801-649-3700. 801-649-3700. We'll be right back.
This segment of Inside Travel Talk is sponsored by El Dorado Spa Resorts. Escape to Cancun's Riviera Maya with authentic, all-inclusive luxury at an El Dorado Spa Resort. To book your romantic beach getaway, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.
You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Here's Patrick and Mark.
It is the weekend. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your weekend. My name is Patrick Wiscombe. Mark Faldmo is on the other end of this connection, and you are listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. If you're new to the show, first of all, thanks for stopping. If you're a longtime listener, our job is to help you plan and book your next vacation and to give you ideas of where to travel in our great world. Mark and I love to travel, and we want to pass that passion on to our listeners. And if you have any travel-related questions, call Mark in his office, 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717. We live in Utah, and that means that there are lots of families that like to go to Disney, whether that be in Orlando, which I was there not too long ago. I bring that up because in this segment, we've got the hot travel deal of the week, and we're going to be talking about Disney deals, free dining plans, 50% off kids. But before we get there, let's get to the travel headlines. This one's been developing for just a little bit, but there's a new Hawaiian volcanic eruption going on. Is it in not Kona? Where is it? Oh, it's the Big Island.
Yeah, it's on the Big Island. It's Kilauea volcano.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And this started erupting again last week, and I've had a couple customers ask, is this going to affect my vacation plans to Hawaii in general? Some volcanoes, like the volcanoes in Iceland or some of the ones in Asia where they kind of blow their top and there's a big ash plume. Mm-hmm. The volcanoes in Hawaii do not have that. Flights aren't affected unless it directly affects the airport. This is just a good chance to actually see a live volcano. There are several ways you can do this. The best way is by helicopter. If you're going to the Big Island in the next few weeks, book a helicopter ride and see if you can't get a glimpse of the erupting volcano.
So Nikki and I were there about 10 months ago. I really wish that we were headed over there right now because I would love to watch a lava event.
Yeah. I remember I was young, early teenage years, and took a helicopter ride. This is when there was a big flow going into the ocean. So we went out and saw the flow going into the ocean. Even though the helicopter was a safe distance away, we were in one of the open air helicopters, and you could feel the heat from the lava, even at the distance we were at.
You're kidding.
So it was fascinating as a child to see that. And I've always wanted to go back. I've been to Hawaii probably 20, 30 times since then. And I've never seen lava. Every time I go, I always seem to be in between events.
I guess that's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the things that just genuinely amazes me is that when it first comes out that some of these lava flows are fast. I don't know how fast in terms of miles per hour, but you always think of lava as kind of creeping. But when it first erupts, it can run like a river quick.
It can, yeah.
Related to the Big Island, the visitor center on the Big Island, Hawaii's Volcano National Park, is going to close for renovation. It's kind of old. It does need some renovation.
I've thought for years that it needs renovation, and they finally are getting around to doing that. The visitor center will close on February 17th, and it could take up to 2 years to complete. They've moved some of the exhibits to some of the other areas, but the park will remain open 24 hours a day during construction, so you can still go see that. You just won't be able to go into the visitor center. It gets 1.5 million visitors a year, and where they had the visitor center just couldn't handle the number of visitors they get. And in 2018, there was another kind of science center, the Yager Museum, which was irreparably damaged in the 2018 eruption. So they closed that, and they actually have taken that building down and all the exhibits out. Once this new visitor center opens in about 2 years, I'm looking forward to seeing what they've done. Those exhibits and movies they have are always fascinating to me. I love how the national parks do that and really get you a good flavor of where you're visiting.
By the way, the Big Island, since we're talking about it right now, geographically, it is one of the most amazing islands I have ever seen in my life. The trip from Hilo over to Kona, kind of a east to west trip, or kind of a east to southwest kind of trajectory. That is some of the most breathtaking and weird geography I've ever seen in my life. It feels like you're on the moon. Not that I know what the moon is like.
The Big Island, it's probably my favorite island in Hawaii. That's because it has all the different climate zones. It has everything but Arctic and tundra. It has every other climatic zone in the world on that island.
It was wild to be part of that. I saw a story that the U.S. government is finalizing the hotel junk fee rule. This one I want to hear about.
Yeah, so we've been talking about this one probably ever since we've started this podcast and radio show.
Yeah.
It finally was voted on, which this means that hotels, they're trying to eliminate a lot of the bait and switch tactics that hotels use. And they want people to know the full price when they're booking a trip. A lot of hotels used to advertise, here's the rate plus taxes. But then when you get there, You have to pay a resort fee. You have to pay a convenience fee. You have all of these fees on top of what you
the
thought
resort
you were
fee
getting.
Yep.
And so this was voted on in mid-December, and it will take effect 120 days after that vote.
So we're looking at April-ish.
Looking at April-ish when that's going to take place. And one thing that I found interesting, and I'd like to see where they came up with these numbers, but the FTC estimates the rule will save consumers up to 53 million hours annually in wasted time spent on trying to find what the total price is. And it will save them more than $11 billion over the next decade.
So
I guess that's over 10 years, but I've never you show up somewhere, but you have to pay this, you have to pay that.
It adds up quick too.
Yeah.
I am pro-capitalism, but good grief. Come on.
Yeah. This is definitely a good rule. And they're doing similar things with the airlines as well. So as we've talked about, we'll continue to stay on these types of stories that help make travel easier.
Always in segment 2 of the show, we've got the hot travel deal of the week, regardless of the destination. And this week, we're talking Disney.
We've got 2 different offers for Disney. The first one is at Walt Disney World. They are bringing back their free dining program. So this has to be booked between January 2nd and February 10th. It is valid for most arrivals, May 27th to June 26th and July 7th to August 6th. So
there's a booking period and then there's a travel period.
Okay. And you can get the free dining when you purchase a non-discounted minimum 3-night resort stay and 3-day park pass. One more thing I should mention on this is there are 2 different dining plans, and that's based on which level of hotel you're staying at Disney. So the moderate, less expensive ones, you get the quick service dining plan, which is 2 quick service meals, 1 snack, and a refillable drink mug, or the dining plan, which is 1 quick service meal, 1 table service meal, and then 1 snack and 1 refillable mug. Depending on which level of hotel you stay at, the more expensive ones, you do get a little bit more for the dining plan. You get a sit-down meal rather than the quick service meals.
We just talked about Walt Disney World. Let's talk about the Disney Cruise Line now.
Over the last few years, Disney Cruise Line, Disney World, Disneyland have all done offers for Disney Plus subscribers. So this particular one, you have to be a Disney Plus subscriber, but it's 50% off kids on select sailings if you book by February 16th.
Let me just ask you a basic question. What is Disney Plus?
So Disney Plus is their TV platform.
Oh, Disney Plus. Hello.
Yeah, yes. Disney Plus. Yeah.
For some reason, I had an amusement park, like there was some kind of ticket level. Yeah, I know what Disney Plus is.
Yeah, no. So it's the Disney Plus.
Okay.
And some people might say 50% off kids. A lot of cruise lines are offering free kids. But even this, if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, or if you just subscribe to get this and you have 2 kids sailing with you, that could save you $1,000 on the cruise.
Oh, yeah.
It is a good deal. And these offers that have come through over the years for Disney Plus subscribers have been pretty good. And I think this is another good one. So if you want to go on a Disney cruise and you're a Disney Plus subscriber and you have kids, this is an offer for you.
And you can take care of anyone who wants to go to Disney, right?
I can.
So as we go to break here, call Mark if you're interested in this particular offer. His office number is 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717. And you can also see this offer on blueplanetvacations.com. And if you have any questions, just call Mark. One more time on the phone number, 888-718-7717. Okay, when we come back, the second half of the show is on the way. The next segment is only about cruising. It's our infamous Just Cruising segment. And we are going to be talking about a 121-day cruise that will visit 25 countries. Warm up the credit card because, Mark, this sounds amazing. To be on a cruise for 121 days. 4 months? A little over 4 months?
And it has a fantastic itinerary, too.
Okay, we'll talk about that next. And, of course, we've always got the cruise deal of the week. That is not 121 days long. That is next when the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show continues. Alongside Mark Faldmo, my name is Patrick Wiscombe. Thank you so much, really, for allowing us to be part of your weekend. We will be right back.
They've literally traveled millions of miles to answer your travel-related questions. Yeah, they really have. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Patrick and Mark will be back after these messages.
Inside Travel Talk is brought to you by AMA Waterways. From castles and capitals to vistas and villages, visit some of Europe's most remarkable sites and cities. To set out on your own river cruise journey, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.
Welcome back, and thanks for listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. Coming up in the remaining 30 minutes of the show, Mark and I will be talking about Panama Canal cruises and new cruise ships coming out in 2025. I love new cruise ships. Let's get back to the show. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, contains travel deals, promotions, and offers that may be time sensitive. All offers and information were accurate when the show aired. Travel deals and offers change constantly and are capacity controlled and subject to change without notice.
Now, back to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Hit us up right now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Here's Patrick and Mark.
All aboard for segment number 3 of the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. This segment is only about cruising. We just simply call it the infamous Just Cruising segment. And coming up here in this segment, we're going to talk about Panama Canal cruises, which is one of Mark's favorite things to do, and new cruise ships coming out in 2025. Is this going to include... I was reading something while I was on vacation that, is this MSC's World America ship? Is that one of them?
That'll be one of the ships on the list. Yeah.
Man, that ship looks awesome. And I'm so glad that you and I have that connection with Laura at MSC Cruises. She's just a good person, and she is very, very amazing at what she does in the cruise industry. Anyway, we'll get to that here in a second. We've got the travel news headlines, and we've got the cruise deal of the week that is not 121 days. In fact, let's just start there. Let's start with the 121-day cruise that will visit 25 countries. What I don't know is, have they started booking it?
They have, yeah. This is open for booking as of about 10 days ago. And this is for a departure date in 2027. So it's still 2 years off. They need some lead time to sell these.
Oh, sure.
And these unique things also sell out pretty quick. It's round trip either Rome or Barcelona. So starting either January 5th or January 8, 2027. This is on MSC Cruise Lines.
Did you say January 2027? So we're 2 years out, basically.
2 years out. Yep.
Okay.
On that. And we'll go over the itinerary in just a minute on this. But one thing that I find interesting in this is the cruise fare includes 15 shore excursions per person, complimentary dining and drink beverage package, and a 30% discount on laundry service.
Okay.
I've not seen that offered on other cruise lines before, where they're offering some shore excursions and beverage package.
No.
Usually those are upgrades. So overall, a pretty good deal. Now it is fairly expensive, but one thing we like to try and do here is find some of the unique things out there. This still price-wise, it starts at about $19.99.
$19.99. I'm like, sign me up.
Yeah. So it starts at just under $20,000 per person. But when you do that math out, that's like $120 a day.
Yeah.
Over 4 months. That's a pretty good deal where you're getting meals, drinks, entertainment, some shore excursions. With the new cruise regulations, that does include all of the taxes and fees, which on this, I bet those are a hefty amount.
Oh, yeah.
The best part of this is the itinerary. We don't have a lot of time, but this has 2 places that are highlights for me. Starts in Rome, as I said, or you can get on a little bit later in Barcelona.
If you had a choice, which one would you start out of?
I probably would get on in Rome.
Okay, me too.
So it sails Western Mediterranean ports, goes down to Gibraltar, Casablanca, and then it sails down across to the east coast of South America. There's several ports, but the main ones, Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires, Ushuaia, and then it comes back around up to Valparaiso in Chile. And then this next segment, which is the South Pacific, I think is the most interesting to me. Has a stop in Easter Island, has a stop Bounty Bay Passage, which we've talked about this before. It's the Pitcairn Islands, where the crew of the mutiny on the Bounty fled to. It's one of the most remote islands in the world. I've not been there. I have a nephew that's been there. One of the most beautiful Pacific islands you'll ever see. And then from there, it goes to Tahiti, goes down to the Cook Islands, sails around New Zealand, goes to Tasmania, Sydney, and then sails up to Fiji, then to Hawaii, over to Los Angeles, does the Mexican Riviera, goes through the Panama Canal, some Caribbean ports, and then back over to the Mediterranean, ending again in either Rome or Barcelona.
Oh, wow. That is a world cruise.
That is. And it has some fascinating ports. It has 3 places that are on my bucket list that I have not done. One being Ushuaia, and then Easter Island and Pitcairn's on there.
What ship is this on? Who's the cruise company and what ship? Do we know yet?
This is on MSC. It's on the MSC Musica is the name of the ship. Oh, that's a nice ship.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of their newer modern ships, I think. It's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's one of their ships that came out in I want to say about 2018, but I'm not sure. It's not one of the big mega ships, but it is one of their newer ships.
That sounds amazing. And they can book that through you, right?
Yes. Yep. I can definitely get that booked if you're interested in that, or any world cruise for that matter.
There is a shore excursions group, and they're rolling out 1,000 new shore excursion options, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, so Shore Excursion Group is a company that I work with quite closely. If you go to blueplanetvacations.com, there is a link on almost every cruise page where you can look at shore excursions. They're a third-party shore excursion provider. They do a great job. They now have over 4,000 tours in 300 ports.
Wow.
They've added a little over 400 tours in Europe, almost 300 in Australia, New Zealand, and Alaska, and then also a little over 200 new experiences in the Caribbean. This is a company that I highly recommend. Usually we say it's safer to do the shore excursion through the cruise line, but you pay a lot more.
Yes,
so Shore Excursion Group is an alternative, and they do have money back guarantee. They do have a return to ship policy that provides transportation, meals, and up to $1,000 per guest if they don't get you back to the ship in time. So they do have insurance in place if something was to happen. I've used them for some big cruise groups, and they've handled all of my group well. I have a family where they arranged a private whale watching tour in Cabo coming up in April, and they do a really good job.
If you want to text the show, because we do take texts during the week, you can call or text us 801 649 3700, 801 649 3700 to text your question. Diane is texting the show, and she's asking about Panama Canal cruises. This is a client question from your client, but she texted you.
Yeah. So she had 6 different questions that she asked. And, I thought they're all really good questions. There's so much information out there on the Panama Canal. I've been lucky enough. I've done the Panama Canal a few times.
Diane's first question is, when is the best time to go see the Panama Canal on a cruise?
I think the best time is in the late spring or late fall. This is when they're repositioning ships to and from different locations. There are Panama Canal cruises that go fairly frequently, but you'll get a better deal on these repositioning cruises when they're just trying to get them from point A to point B to start a new season somewhere. And those usually happen when they're trying to position ships from the Caribbean to go to Alaska, or vice versa, ships from Alaska going to the Caribbean for the winter season.
Another one of the questions that she had is, what direction, meaning east or west, should I choose? Should I do the full transit or the partial transit? I guess you better explain what the difference is.
There are cruises. You can go to Miami. You can go to Florida and take a Panama Canal cruise that only goes through the Atlantic locks. That's a good way to see how the locks work, experience the canal. But I'd recommend a full transit. So this is one that goes from the Pacific to the Atlantic or vice versa. So you'd start on the East Coast, end in the West Coast, or vice versa on that. If you do the partial transit, you miss the Gatun Cut, you miss what is the Panama Canal. You will experience going through the locks, but you'll miss what is the Panama Canal.
All right, so full transit is what you're saying here.
Yeah, full transit.
Diane is also asking, should I get a balcony if I'm going to do a Panama Canal cruise?
I would say yes, because when you're going through the canal, you can go experience it on the front of the ship. You can experience it on deck, but watching from your balcony, you get just as good of views of all of that. And then when you're cruising actually through the canal, through the Gatun Cut, you get to see that. I think one of our other questions is, what side of the ship should I be on?
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. But if you're one place where it may matter is when you're going, we'll just take going from Pacific to Atlantic. You'd want to be on the right side of the ship because that's the side where Panama City is on.
So starboard side.
Starboard side. Yep. If you're going the other direction, then you would want to be on the left or port side of the ship. But it really doesn't matter on that. There's just a little bit more to see on that side of the ship.
How long does it take to get through the Panama Canal?
It's a full day process. So
it is. I think sometimes when they say canal, I always think of like these small watering ditches.
Yeah.
That's not what this is.
No, it's a big ordeal to actually get through the canal. Early in the morning, all the ships are going from Pacific to Atlantic, and then they meet up in Gatun Lake.
Now, what's it called?
It's Gatun Lake.
Gatun.
Gatun.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a man-made lake, and that's kind of what drives the canal because it's all gravity driven. All the water is filled by gravity in the locks. And so it all comes, it flows from the mountains of Panama into the lake. And so they only do traffic in one direction now. And then in the evening, it opens up to go the other direction.
Oh, interesting.
Now, I've only done Panama Canal from Pacific side to Atlantic side. So in that, we started through the canal at about 5 a.m. is when the process starts going through the canal. And then...
So it's kind of an AM, PM.
Yes.
So west to east is AM, and then of course the opposite in the evening or the afternoon.
Yeah, yeah, because there's the Gatun Cut where the ships go through. There's not room for two-way traffic. Well, there might be, but it's pretty narrow. So it's safer just to go all one direction.
One of the last questions that Diane had was, should she go through the new locks or the old locks?
Well, I have not been through the new locks. I think I would prefer the old locks. Now, how that's decided is if the ship is above a certain size, you'll go through the new locks. The smaller ships that can fit through the old locks will always go through the old locks. If you're wanting to go through the old locks, which I think that's where a lot of the scenery is in the old locks, you'll want to go on a smaller ship through the Panama Canal.
As promised, always in this segment, the infamous Just Cruising segment, we've got the cruise deal of the week. And what do we have for listeners this week?
We're going to continue on with Panama Canal theme, and I've chosen 2 sailings. They're both this coming spring, and they're both repositioning their ships. The first one is on MSC. It's an 18-day cruise, goes from Miami to Seattle.
Oh, really?
They're repositioning the cruise to Alaska. MSC is one of the new entrants in Alaska cruises. And so, they're going to probably start offering these spring and fall Panama Canal cruises a little bit more regularly.
Do we know or ships that they're taking to Seattle, Miami to Seattle?
Yeah, they're taking I can't pronounce it. It's the Poesia. It's Italian. It's an Italian word.
What is it?
The MSC Poesia.
Okay.
Poesia.
Okay. Or Poesia or something like that.
Poesia. Yeah. I guess if I'm going to be on radio and podcast, I should learn how to pronounce these words.
Well, I hit you cold, so.
Yeah. And so again, April 23rd, it's 18-day cruise, starts at $17.58 per person for an inside cabin or $23.68 per person for a balcony cabin. So that on the inside is less than $100 a day.
That's phenomenal. MSC they are coming into the American market hard right now, and they are offering amazing cruises for massive discounts compared to some of the other cruise lines.
Yeah.
By the way, the MSC Poesia, if we're saying that right, was built in 2008, was last refurbished in 2018.
Yeah.
And about 2,500 passengers.
And that's the size that will go through the old locks.
Okay. All right.
On that. And that just quickly, the itinerary on that starts in Miami, goes to Cartagena, Colombia, goes to Colón in Panama, does the Panama Canal, goes to Costa Rica, Cabo San Lucas, San Diego, Los Angeles, and ends in Seattle.
Dude, that's a good itinerary. It's less than $100 a day.
It is. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then the next one, we'll just do 2 Panama Canal cruises. This one is later in May. It's May 17th. And this one, they're repositioning the ship that was doing the Mexican Riviera. They're repositioning it to New York to do Canada and New England.
Oh, probably for the fall.
For the fall.
And
yeah.
Summer.
So, yeah. So it'll do Canada, New England, and possibly Bermuda in the summer, and then do the fall colors tour. This one starts at $16.88 per person, and it's an 18-day cruise as well.
Jeez.
Departs on May 17th, and this one departs Los Angeles, Puerto Vallarta, Huatulco, Mexico, and then goes to Chiapas in Mexico, goes to Costa Rica, Panama City, does the Panama Canal, goes to Aruba, and then ends in New York City.
Wow.
So those are 2 great options for Panama Canal, one April, one May.
And you're going from coast to coast. I mean, Los Angeles to New York. That's a good trip. And it's 18 days.
18 days.
What ship is the Princess, the 18 days?
Yeah, so the Princess one is on the Island Princess, which is also, it's about the same size as the MSC one. So that one would go through the older locks as well.
And you can book those, obviously.
Yes, I can book those.
Okay. Call Mark in his office, 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717. And you can also go to blueplanetvacations.com. Final segment of the show coming up. We've got Mark's travel tips, just a little bit more travel news headlines that we need to get to, and then we'll recap the deals briefly, everything that we've mentioned in this episode of the show. Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your weekend. Mark and I will be right back.
Explore your world. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now. 801-649-3700. 801-649-3700. We'll be right back.
This segment of Inside Travel Talk is sponsored by Starkippers. For over 30 years, Starkippers has offered unique, authentic tall ship sailing experiences featuring creative itineraries throughout the Mediterranean, Caribbean, and Central America. To book your unique Star Clipper sailing adventure, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.
They'll help you plan and book your next vacation. Yeah, really. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now. 801-649-3700. 801-649-3700. And now, here's Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your weekend. My name is Patrick Wiscombe. You are listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. Mark Faldmo is running in from the other room. He had to print some stuff off for this final segment. Coming up in this final segment, we're going to be talking about Mark's travel tips, and we're also going to recap all of the offers that we've made throughout this entire hour. Let's start with the travel news headlines, and then we'll recap everything. Let's talk about the new cruise ships. I guess we should have included this in the Just Cruising segment. Let's talk about the cruise ships debuting in 2025. This is a subject that I always like because I like new cruise ships a lot.
Yeah, new cruise ships are fascinating. All the new bells and whistles. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go over all the bells and whistles of these ships, but we'll kind of give a brief thing. So the first new ship coming out is in April of 2025, and that's the MSC World America.
Very Icon of the Seas-esque. Very large ship.
Yeah. We did a segment on that, on the things that it was offering, and I'm excited to see this ship. It'll have a guest capacity of just under 7,000 passengers, and it will sail round trip Miami.
I'm going to call Laura. See if we can do a media preview for that one.
Yes. Yeah. The next ship coming out will also be in April of 2025, which is the Norwegian Aqua.
Yeah, that's a beautiful ship.
That is. And this will be a sister ship
to the
Prima, and it'll have about 3,500 guests. It is also set to sail round trip Miami. So in April, Miami's getting 2 brand new cruise ships.
What other cruise ships?
And then we have Oceania Cruise Lines, which will put out the Allura in July 2025. It's a brand owned by Norwegian Cruise Line, and that ship will have a capacity of about 1,200 guests. So it's a smaller ship. Another smaller ship that will come out in July of 2025 is the Viking Vesta, which has just under 1,000 guests. That one will mainly be sailing the Mediterranean and Northern Europe. Royal Caribbean also has one of their large ships coming out in August of 2025, the Star of the Seas.
Oh, wait, who's making that one?
Royal Caribbean.
Oh, okay.
The Star of the Seas.
Yes, I've seen a little bit of PR on that one already.
Yeah, there's been some out on that, and it has just over 5,500 guest capacity. Virgin Voyages, one of my favorite cruise lines, will put out the Brilliant Lady in September of 2025 with a guest capacity of just under 3,000, which will sail Bermuda from New York City. And then in the winter season, it'll be Caribbean sailings. And then Princess Cruises in September will launch the Star Princess, guest capacity of 4,300. And that will be in the Mediterranean and Caribbean as where that ship will be sailing. The last ship is one that we've also talked about, the Disney Destiny, which will come out in 2025. It has a guest capacity of 4,000, and it will be sailing from Fort Lauderdale, from Port Everglades. Disney is really working on expanding their fleet.
This feels like a story we've been talking about all of 2024, that the UK is opening applications for electronic travel authorization. It's on, It's off, it's on.
Yeah, so I wanted to put this in this show because we've announced already that it's on and starting, but it does start January 8th. So 4 days from now, if you're traveling to the UK, you do need to go on to the UK government website and purchase an electronic travel authorization or an ETA to visit the UK.
As we take off for the week, let's recap all of the deals that we've talked in each of the segments, and I'll let you decide where you want to start.
Let's start the travel deal of the week, which was Disney. We talked about the free Disney dining plan, which is a pretty good offer by Disney. You have to book it by, I believe it was mid-February, like February 15th. And then it's for travel most dates during the summer. There are some blackout dates, May through the end of August on that, with some blackout dates. And then we also talked about for those that were Disney Plus subscribers, if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, you get 50% off kids on a Disney cruise, which could be hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars in savings with those kids at 50% off on Disney Cruise Line.
Okay, in segment 3, we had the infamous Just Cruising segment. What do we have?
Yep, and then we talked in length about Panama Canal cruises. And we talked about 2 cruises, one on, which was an 18-day cruise on MSC. Starts at $17.58 per person, so less than $100 per person per day, sailing April 23rd from Miami to Seattle as they position that ship for Alaska cruises. And then we talked about another repositioning cruise on Princess, which left May 17th, and this one sailed Los Angeles to New York City through the Panama Canal, as they're repositioning that cruise to do Canada, New England, and that one started at $16.88 per person. So again, just under $100 per person per day, which is a good benchmark for cruises.
Those were good deals. As cruises go, awesome.
Yeah.
That's going to do it. Man, this show goes so fast each and every week, and it's fun to talk travel. And if we have whet your appetite to go travel, if we've given you an idea of where to go, or if you just know where you want to go, let Mark help you. He's traveled over 4 million miles. He's done over 150 cruises, and I'm proud to call him my friend, and he's a good man. You can see all of the vacation specials that we talked about on blueplanetvacations.com, or you can just call him in his office, 888-718-7717, 888-718-7717. You can listen to this show again tomorrow morning, Sunday at 11 a.m. right here on 860 KKAT or whatever radio station you're listening to. And if you want or need to listen to the show again, you can download and subscribe to the podcast of the show at InsideTravelTalk.com. And if you go to that website, you can just get the link to all of the major podcast platforms. Well, that's it. It's your turn to get out and explore the world while you can, because you just never know what curveballs life is going to throw at you. Live your life deliberately. Live your life intentionally. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. Mark and I will talk to you again next Saturday and Sunday.
That's it. That's the end of the show. You've been listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Book your adventure right now. Call 888-718-7717. That's 888-718-7717. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.